Hello and welcome back to Gallbladder Gone Now What? This is a very special podcast I'm sharing with you because it hits home really deeply for me. So, what if the very thing slowing your healing is the fact that you won't stop trying to heal? What if the protocol, the supplements, the cleanses, the fasts aren't failing, but your body is never being given the opportunity or the permission to integrate what you're doing? In Genesis chapter 2, before sin, before sickness, before exhaustion ever entered the world, God did something shocking. He stopped and then he blessed the stopping. So today I'm going to show you why the Sabbath isn't just a religious tradition. It is a biological, neurological, and spiritual healing law. God is so good. He never gives us one thing to do one thing. It always blesses every part of our lives. So we will talk about why nonstop healing efforts can actually delay recovery, why the one of the greatest herbalists of the last century required a weekly day off from every protocol he ever gave, and why this matters, especially if you're healing your liver or living without a gallbladder. And before we're done, I'll give you a simple way to test this for yourself as you prove all things and hold fast to that which is true. That scripture's in Thessalonians. This this week I want you to just pay attention to these subtleties that we're going to talk about. So stay with me. Grab your herbal tea and let's begin. All right, I want to start out with a story. It's about two lumberjacks. So there's an old story where two lumberjacks enter a competition to see who can chop the most wood in a single day. Both of these men are very strong, they're very skilled, and they begin at sunrise. But something strange begins to happen. One lumberjack works nonstop. He chops furiously, barely stopping for water. Sweat pours, his muscles burn, and he prides himself on endurance. The other lumberjack does something that looks or can be misconstrued as a little bit lazy. Every hour or so, he stops and walks into the forest alone. There he sits down, he drinks water, and most importantly, he sharpens his axe. The first lumberjack scoffs and says to himself, "While he's resting, I'm getting ahead." By the end of the day, the nonstop worker is exhausted and he is shocked by the results. The man who stopped regularly wins. "How is this possible?" he shouts. "I never took a break. I worked the whole day from sunup to sunrise." Then the first lumberjack asks, "What do you think I was doing?" "I didn't win because I worked harder, but because I sharpened my axe." So today's episode is about the rhythm of axe sharpening and why God built it into creation itself. So in Genesis chapter 2, verse 3, 2 through 3, there is a scriptural foundation here. It says, "And on the seventh day, God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it." So this is before there was sin, before there was disease, before labor even became painful. So what does this mean? It means that rest is not a response to brokenness. Rest was part of the original plan. So God did not rest because he was tired. He rested because rest completes creation. It's part of the process. So the Hebrew word for rest is Shabbat. So that literally means to cease, to stop, and to delight. So the Sabbath is not about collapse. It's not about working so hard on the seventh day you can't do anything. It's about intentionally seceding, like resting. It's about, so a lot of people with the Sabbath day will just, "Oh, I'm just going to sleep all day." And they consider that keeping the Sabbath. But I'm going to ask you, Do you feel truly rested, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually and mentally? And so the Sabbath is an act of trust. And when I started to learn this, because my mom always used to say about me, she goes, Jamie, you were either asleep or your hair was on fire, like always doing something, always going. So learning to rest has been one of my biggest challenges and blessings at the same time. So, learning that rest is an act of worship, it's an act of trust. It's also spiritual warfare. So, rest says, I trust God more than my effort. I trust rhythm more than hustle. And I trust healing more than control. And just saying that almost makes my chest tighten and then release. Like, can it be so wonderful that I can trust the Lord? I can trust His rhythm. I can trust healing. And I can step back from effort and hustle and control. And in that, I won't just find peace and clarity. I'll find gratitude. I'll find my testimony. I'll find all the gifts God is waiting for me to receive. Being in the state of rest is in a state of receiving. And so, when we're doing, we can't receive, whether that's answers to prayers, whether that's healing, whether that's blessings that He's waiting to give us. So when Israel was given manna, they were told, gather it for 6 days, and then on the seventh day, gather none. But there were those who tried to hoard it and discovered that it rotted. So healing obeys this same law. Constant doing eventually produces decay. So Sabbath is a weekly declaration of faith. It says, God, I believe you are working even when I stop. And I love that. I love in Genesis when God creates Adam. And then while Adam is asleep, he creates Eve. So even when we are asleep, when we're resting, God is still working. He's still working on our behalf, but we've got to stop resistance. We got to stop blocking his his rhythm, his ways, his power in our lives and learn to receive it. So someone who really, really understood this was Dr. John Christopher, who was an herbalist and healer. He was one of the most respected herbalists in the 20th century, and he always built a Sabbath into his protocols. I remember when I learned this, I was listening to a lecture of his, and he said, always on the Sabbath day, on the Sunday, don't take, he said, no herbs, no intense protocols, no cleansing. And it was to be a day of true rest. And what he observed when he did this is something really profound. So he observed that healing times shortened when the body was allowed to rest. Isn't that interesting? Sometimes we think, consistency and hustle and struggle and keep doing it is the thing that will get us to the finish line. And we hear a lot of that. But oftentimes it's in those quiet moments, those rest periods, that we're going to see the most healing because the body doesn't heal during stimulation. It heals during integration. So when I've worked with clients in the past, one of the things I try to tell my clients, and it's always a struggle for them in the beginning, and I have to keep reminding them, we're not doing more, we're doing deliberate, aligned things. And so I always that people will always pendulum. They'll get extreme in something, and I have to bring them back to remind them that this is what we're doing is we're stepping into alignment. We're not just adding, adding, adding. And so we know that ancient healing systems understood this. We in the Bible we had the Sabbath. Ayurveda has rest days. There's monastic fasting cycles, and even early Christians had the feast and fast rhythms. And that was when you're fasting, it's just not eating, right? It is very integrative. It's about rest. It's about journaling. It's about becoming spiritual again. It was this whole way of healing that was centered around rest. So there is a science of rest and repair because healing always requires a pause. So modern science confirms what Genesis taught first. This is why I love, love, love integrating into my program. You will always have history, science, and sacred texts because it goes so beautifully together. So first thing is that it resets the nervous system. So true healing happens in the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest state. Interestingly enough, most people, especially those who are sick and are dealing with chronic illness, um, are constantly in that sympathetic overdrive. And so they're in chronic protocols, constant supplements, nonstop fasting, exercising, doing these things. So there's a whole section in Healthy by Design, the creator's blueprint to healthy living, about reframing the brain and the body and getting them to connect so that we step out of that sympathetic into that parasympathetic, because you won't heal if your nervous system is in constant overdrive. And so rest allows that vagus nerve to activate and our hormones to recalibrate and tissue to repair. So we know that in liver and gallbladder recovery that the liver does its deepest detoxification during rest and sleep. And so again, when I have clients come to me, I usually have women who come to me who are incredibly intelligent, incredibly driven, and they're incredibly frustrated because they've done all the reading, they've done all this research, and they come into the program and I'm helping them learn to rest, to trust. And it's hard in the beginning because it doesn't feel comfortable. If there's like this agitation of like, I have to do this, I can't do this, all these things. And setting up a lifestyle, that's why that is so important. Such an integral part is setting up a healing lifestyle. So we guard our health so we can heal our families, our bodies, our community. So this is super important stuff. So we know that when we don't have a gallbladder, that bile is constantly dripping and digestive timing is already disruptive. So this nonstop stimulation can overwhelm the liver. So the Sabbath gives bile pathways a break. One of the things I love about the Sabbath is I've decided. So I love the word decide because day means of, side means to cut off. So you decide, and you match it with a desire, which is of God, of the sire. And so it's just this fascinating way that when we make a decision that the whole world, God conspires to help us reach that decision. And so when I decided to keep this Sabbath day holy, like it says in the scriptures, I don't clean, I don't do a lot of cooking. I try to prepare that in advance. Some of the things that I do a lot of resting. I'll put in bathing. I'll read good books. I crochet. I do things that are restorative. And to me, like I'll tell people I don't do things on the Sabbath because I literally have taken that time and it's for me and God. And so the third thing that resting does is that it helps with autophagy and fasting rhythms. So when we rest from food periodically, it improves that autophagy, which autophagy is really it's the cleaning of the cells in our body. And so we don't want that constant hardcore fasting that raises cortisol, stresses the liver, makes the thyroid and hormones go crazy. But what we can do is Sabbath fasting is not a punishment. So maybe we fast from social media, maybe we fast from um, television or movies or going out. But often we can fast on good, nourishing food that's easy to digest. So I love soup on Sundays, right? And so it just helps. I keep it in the crock pot and then we can just dip into it anytime that we want. So we need to understand that this fasting is not a punishment, but it is a physiological mercy that the Lord gives us. Now, before I get into the practical implementation of rest, I have, let me see, I think I have four things to do. I just want to tell you that this is all part of the program in Healthy by Design, the creator's blueprint for healthy living, that we use this and we walk through each phase incorporating these things. So the first phase is healing digestion. It's getting you feeling better right away. The second phase is we work on the mindset to make changes easier and to recalibrate that nervous system. The third phase, we balance hormones. The fourth phase, we learn when to cleanse and how to, more importantly, restore the body. And the fifth part is we put it all together so that we are walking in health and faith with rest and trust as part of that protocol. So this isn't about pushing harder, it's about alignment. So click the link in the show notes and you can schedule a free 10-minute Healthy by Design consult with me if it's something that you're interested in, that you want to ask some more questions. Also, make sure to like and subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss anything and share it. I would really appreciate the support if you can share it with somebody you love because I am dedicated to helping 100,000 women heal themselves, their families, and their communities. Okay, back to Sabbath healing. So, the first thing we're going to do is practice physical rest. So, this is a day that we don't do strenuous workouts. We maybe do some gentle walking, enjoy the sun, the fresh air, go sit at the park, put our feet on the grass, maybe do some stretching, some gentle work, right? Because motion is lotion. I have a friend who hates that saying, but it really is, and movement is medicine. But it doesn't have to be strenuous and it doesn't have to be hardcore, especially on that Sabbath. The second thing is we can do is a digestive rest. And this is where we have those simple foods or even light fasting, depending on where you are in your cycle. So we talk about this in the hormones section, is when it's appropriate um, to fast on your cycle. Also, the length of fasts and the type of fast that will be important for your specific body and situation and time of the month. Another thing is you can rest the digestive system using warm liquids. So I love to do these deep, nourishing herbal decoctions, or you could do broths, just something really easy digested, but is still nourishing. So this is going to be especially important for those without a gallbladder, with sluggish bile and that chronic bloating. It kind of resets them. All right, so we can do this. I suggest we do this at least once a week. And if you're in chronic disease, we need to do it more. But once a week, and sometimes it's just like 15 minutes a day, and then that once a week, right? So that's when we're going to pause those supplementations, pause the detoxification herbs, and any aggressive routines that you're doing. And what this is going to do is prevent the receptor fatigue and allows that cellular listening. The other thing is the Sabbath is not scrolling on a different day. So, brain and sensory rest is really important. So, this is where we reduce input. We have quiet reflection. We study our scriptures. We spend time in nature. We know that the brain heals with silence. And this is a real challenging one for me because I love having input. But so much of that input needs to be digested, even if it's auditory or visual, it still needs to be digested by the brain. So the brain can get pretty tired. And so having those quiet times daily and then weekly is going to be incredibly important to healing. So why does this matter if someone is chronically ill? So for those healing from chronic conditions often believe that if I stop, I'm going to lose progress. That is not true. Healing is not linear. It is rhythmic. And so we're going to step into the rhythm of healing. We align with principles, patterns, and promises in the Bible. And what's interesting is those show up in history. Every culture knows these things. And then science is really starting to back this up. And knowing how to do that is going to be really important for healing. So, this is going to be important, especially for those who have adrenal fatigue, hormone imbalance, digestive issues, either before or post gallbladder removal, autoimmune. I've known people who have healed from autoimmune by, and I've worked with some to get their bodies back online again. So the body needs permission to stop defending itself. It needs to feel safe, and the Sabbath provides that permission. So I just want to mention that God blessed the seventh day, not the sixth, and not the effort. The blessing is on the ceasing. So if you're stuck in healing, if your body feels resistant, if your mind won't slow down, ask yourself, when was my last true Sabbath? Not a day off, not just something you didn't go to work, but you did a million other things, but a holy pause with an intentional rest. When was the last time you sharpened your axe? You rested, you went inside, you know, it's so powerful. So, this is where healing happens. And I just want to close with Isaiah, a closing scripture, Isaiah 30:15. It says, in returning and rest shall ye be saved. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. I just want to share with you that this is something I work on daily because I have a tendency to want to just do these bursts and I know how powerful rest is. And I implement a Sabbath every every week and then try to have bouts of rest 10 to 15 minutes several times a day. And it has made all the difference. But what it has made the most difference is my relationship with God, learning to trust the rhythm, learning to trust that when I stop, He's still working in my behalf, that I don't lose momentum. I gain blessings. So, with that, I am so grateful that you're here, and I hope and wish for you happy digesting, and I will see you in the next podcast. Before you go, I have a little surprise for you today as a thank you for listening. If you're enjoying this podcast, I'd love your help in getting out to more hands and hearts. When you share an episode on social media along with what you learned or loved and tag me, you'll be entered to win a free mini coaching session with me. Every share counts as an entry. Make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss what's coming next and keep those reviews and topic suggestions coming. They truly mean so much to me, and I'm grateful that you're here.